I am the Epileptic Explorer, and tonight we will continue our reading in Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This is the third book in the trilogy of Shadow and Bone. There is a Netflix series that was out called Shadow and Bone. It had 2 seasons, was originally going to have a third season, but they canceled it to 2. And I never got to see the second season. So, if in the near future I end up getting Netflix again, I will do a comparison of the show to the book, except this one, because it never happened. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and continue our reading in Ruin and Rising. Hopefully you can hear the ambiance. Chapter 6. Gunfire shattered the air around us, and Maul knocked me from my feet. I landed with my face in the mulch of the forest floor, and felt his body shielding mine. "Stay down," he yelled. I twisted my head to the side and saw the Grisha forming a ring around us. Harshaw was on the ground, but Stig had his flint in hand, and flames shot through the air. Timur and Toya had charged into the fray. Zoya, Nadia, and Adric had their hands up, and leaves lifted in gusts from the forest floor. But it was hard to tell friend from foe in the tangle of armed men. There was a sudden thump beside us as someone swung down from the treetops. "Wait, what are you two doing barefoot and half naked in the mud?" asked a familiar voice. Looking for truffles, I hope?" Nikolai slashed through the bonds on our wrists and yanked me to my feet. "Next time, I'll try getting captured." Sorry. "Next time, I'll try getting captured, just to keep things interesting." He tossed Maul a rifle. "Shall we?" "I can't tell who's who," I protested. "We are on the side that's hopelessly outnumbered." Unfortunately, I didn't think he was kidding. As the ranks shifted and I got my wits about me, it was easier to distinguish Nikolai's men by their pale blue armbands. They'd cut a swath through Luchenko's militia, but even without their leader, the enemy was rallying. I heard a shout. Nikolai's men moved forward, driving the Grisha ahead of them. We were being herded. "What's happening?" I asked. This is the part where we run," Nikolai said pleasantly, but I could see the strain on his dirt-smudged face. We took off through the trees, trying to keep pace as Nikolai darted through the woods. I couldn't tell where we were headed. Toward the creek? The road? I lost all sense of direction. I looked behind me, counting the others, making sure we were together. The squallers were summoning in tandem, knocking trees into the malicious path. Stig trailed them, sending up spurts of flame. David had somehow managed to retrieve his pack and staggered beneath its bulk as he ran beside Gingy. "Leave it," I yelled, but if he heard, he ignored me. Toya had Harshaw thrown over his shoulder, and the weight of the big inferno was slowing his stride. A soldier was gaining on him, saber drawn. Timur vaulted onto the fallen trunk, took aim with her pistol, and fired. A second later, the militiaman clutched his chest and crumpled mid-stride. Oncat darted past the body, fast on Toya's heels. "Where's Sergei?" I shouted, just as I glimpsed him lagging behind, his expression dazed. Timur backtracked, dodging falling trees and fire, and forcibly pulled him along. I couldn't hear what she was yelling, but I didn't think it was gentle encouragement. I stumbled. Maul caught my elbow and shoved me forward, turning to squeeze off 2 shots from his rifle. Then we were pouring into a barley field. Despite the heat of the late afternoon sun, the field was shrouded in mist. We pelted over the marshy soil until Nikolai shouted, "Here!" We skidded to a halt, setting up sprays of dirt. Here? We were in the middle of an empty field with nothing but fog for cover and a throng of militiamen hungry for revenge and fortune on our heels. I heard 2 shrill whistle blasts. The ground rocked beneath me. "Hold on tight," Nikolai said. "To what?" I yelped. And then we were rising. Cables snapped into place beside us as the field itself seemed to lift. I looked up. The mist was parting, and a massive craft hovered directly over our heads. Its cargo hold open. It was some kind of shallow barge, equipped with sails at one end and suspended beneath a huge oblong ladder. "What is that?" Maul said. "The Pelican," said Nikolai. "Well, a prototype of the Pelican." Trek seems to be getting the balloon not to collapse.
Our expanded distribution centers
And did you solve that little problem?
Providing more choices, more sizes, and
The
more
soil beneath us fell away,
loading bays
and I saw we were standing on a swing platform made of some kind of metal mesh. We rose higher, 10, then 15 feet above the ground. A bullet pinged against the metal. We took up spots at the edge of the platform, clutching the cables while trying to take aim at the mob firing up at us. "Let's go," I shouted. "Why aren't we getting out of range?" Nikolai and Maul exchanged a glance. They know we are the Sun Saint," Nikolai said. Maul nodded, snatched up the pistol, and gave Tulia and Tamar a swift nudge. Sorry about the commercial. That's going to be happening throughout this video, unfortunately. "What are you doing?" I asked, suddenly panicked. "We can't leave survivors," Maul said. Then he dove from the edge. I screamed, but he tucked into a roll and came up firing. Toy and Timur followed, cutting through the remaining ranks of militia, while Nikolai and his crew tried to lend cover from above. I saw one of the militiamen break free and run for the woods. Toya put a bullet through his victim's back, and before the body had even hit the ground, the giant was turning, his hand forming a fist as he crushed the heart of another knife-wielding soldier limping up behind him. Timur charged directly into Ekaterina. Her axes flashed twice, and the militiawoman fell, her top knot drifting down beside her lifeless form. Attached to a piece of scalp, another man lifted his pistol, taking aim at Timur, but Maul was on him, knife slicing mercilessly through across his throat. "I am become a blade." And then there was no one left, only bodies in the field. "Come on," Nikolai called as the platform drifted higher. He tossed down a cable. Maul braced his feet against the ground, holding the rope taut so Timur and Tulia could shinny up. As soon as the twins were on the platform, Maul hooked his ankle and wrist in the cable, and they bent to haul him in. That was when I saw movement behind him. A man had risen from the dirt, covered in mud and blood. Saber held out before him. "Maul!" I cried, but it was too late. His limbs were tangled in the rope. The soldier released a roar and slashed out. Maul put up a useless hand to defend himself. Light flashed off the soldier's blade. His arm stopped mid-swing, and the saber dropped from his fingertips. Then his body came apart, splitting down the middle as if someone had drawn a near-perfect line from the top of his head all the way down to his groin, a line that gleamed bright as he fell in pieces. Maul looked up. I stood at the edge of the platform, my hand still glowing with the power of the cut. I swayed. Nikolai yanked me back before I could tip over the edge. I broke free of him, scooting to the far end of the platform and vomiting off the other side. I clung to the cool metal, feeling like a coward. Maul and the twins had leapt into that battle to make sure the Darkling wouldn't learn our location. We hadn't hesitated. They'd killed with ruthless efficiency. I'd taken one life, and I was curled up like a child, wiping stick from my lip. Stick sent fire looking over the bodies in the field. I hadn't stopped to think that a body sliced in half would give away my presence just as surely as an informant. Moments later, the platform was hauled up into the Pelican's cargo hold, and we were underway. When we emerged above deck, the sun was shining off the port side as we climbed on into the clouds. Nikolai shouted commands. One team of squallers manned the giant lozenge of a balloon, while another filled the sails with wind. Pine shrouded the base of the craft in mist to keep us from being spotted by anyone on the ground. I recognized some of the rogue Grisha from the days when Nikolai had masqueraded as Sturmhorn, and Maul and I had been prisoners aboard his ship. This craft was larger and less graceful than the Hummingbird or the Kingfisher. I soon learned that it had been built to transport cargo, shipments of Zemeni weapons that Nikolai was smuggling over the northern and southern borders, and occasionally through the fold. It wasn't constructed of wood, but some lightweight fabricator-made substance that sent David into a tizzy. He actually lay down on the deck to get a better view, tapping here and there. It's some kind of cured resin, but it's been reinforced with carbon fibers? Glass, said Nikolai, looking through, thoroughly pleased by David's enthusiasm. More flexible, David said in near ecstasy. What can I say? Asked Ganya dryly. He's a passionate man. Ganya's presence worried me a little, but Nikolai had never seen her scarred, and he didn't seem to recognize her. I stipulated that not with Nadia, whispering a few reminders to our Grisha about not using her real name. The crewman offered me a cup of fresh water so I could rinse out my hair and wash my face and hands. I accepted it with cheeks burning, embarrassed over my display back on the platform. When I was done, I leaned my elbows on the railing and peered through the mist at the landscape below. Fields painted in the red and gold of autumn. The blue-gray glitter of the river cities in their bustling ports. Such was the mad power of Nikolai that I barely thought twice about the fact that we were flying. I've been aboard his smaller crafts, and I definitely preferred the field Pelican. There was something stately about it. It might not get you anywhere quickly, but it wouldn't capsize on a whim either. From miles beneath the earth to miles above, I could scarcely believe any of it. That Nikolai had found us. That he was safe. That we were all here. A tide of relief washed over me, making my eyes fill. First vomit, then tears, Nikolai said, coming up beside me. Don't tell me I've lost my touch. I'm just happy you're alive, I said, hastily blinking my eyes clear. Though I'm sure you can talk me out of it. Glad to see you too. Word has you'd gone underground, but it was more like you'd vanished completely. It did feel like being buried alive. Is the rest of your party there? Yes, this is it. You can't mean this is all that remains of the Second Army. The Darkling has his Grisha. You have yours, but I trailed off. Nikolai surveyed the deck. Maul and Toya were deep in conversation with a member of Nikolai's crew, helping to tie down ropes and maneuver a sail. Someone had found Maul a jacket, but he was still short a pair of boots. David was running his hands over the deck, as if he were trying to disappear into it. The others were clustered into little groups. Genya was huddled with Nadia and the other Earthroki. Stig had gotten stuck with Sergei, who slumped on the deck, his head buried in his hands. Tamar was seeing to Arshaw's wounds as Onkat dug her claws into his leg, her fur standing on end. The tabby obviously didn't enjoy flying. All that remains, Nikolai repeated. One healer chose to stay underground. After a long minute, I asked, "How did you find us?" I didn't really. Militias have been preying on our smuggling routes. We couldn't afford to lose another shipment, so I came after Lunchenko. Then Timur was spotted in the square. We realized that camp they were moving on was yours. I thought, why not get the girl? And the guns. He grinned. Exactly! Thank goodness we had the foresight to be captured. Very quick thinking on your part. I commend you. How are the king and queen? He snorted and said, fine. Bored. There's little for them to do. He adjusted the cuff of his coat. They took Vasily's loss hard. I'm sorry, I said. In truth, I'd spared little thought for Nikolai's older brother. He brought it on himself, but I'm surprised to say I'm sorry too. I need to know, did you get Bagra out? At great trouble and with little thanks. You might have warned me about her. She's a treat, isn't she? Like a fine plague. He reached out and tugged a lock of my white hair. Bold choice. I pushed the loose strands behind my ears, self-consciously. It's all the fashion underground. Is it? It happened during the battle. I hoped it might turn back, but it seems to be permanent. My cousin Ludovic woke up with a white streak in his hair after he almost died in a house fire. Claimed the ladies found it very dashing. Of course, he also claimed the house fire was set by ghosts. Who can say? So who can say? Poor cousin Ludovic. Nikolai leaned back on the railing and studied balloon tethered sorry. And studied the balloon tethered above us. At first I'd assumed it was canvas, but now I thought it might be cell-coated with rubber. Alina, he began. I was so unused to seeing Nikolai ill at ease that it took me a moment to realize he was struggling for words. Alina, the night the palace was attacked, I did come back. Was that what was worrying him? That I thought he'd abandoned me? I never doubted it. What did you see? The grounds were dark when I flew over. Fires had broken out in a few places. I saw David's dishes shattered on the roof and the lawn of the little palace. The chapel had collapsed. There were Nishovoya crawling all over it. I thought we might be in trouble, but they didn't spare the Kingfisher a second look. They wouldn't. Not with their master trapped and dying beneath a heap of rubble. I'd hoped there might be some way to retrieve Vasily's body, he said, but it was no good. The whole place was overrun. What happened? The Nishovoya attacked the little palace. By the time I arrived, one of the dishes was already down. I dug my nail into the rail of the ship, scratching a little half-moon. We never had a chance. I didn't want to think about the main hall streaked with blood. The bodies strewn over the roof, the floor, the stairs, broken heaps of blue, red, and purple, and darkening. I tried to kill him, as one does, by killing myself. I see. I brought the chapel down, I said. You? Well, the Nishovoya did, at my command. You could command them? Already I could see him calculating a possible advantage, always the strategist. Don't get excited, I said. I had to create my own Nishovoya to do it, and I had to be in direct contact with the Darkling. Oh, he said glumly. But once you found the Firebird? I'm not sure, I admitted, but I hesitated. I'd never spoken this thought aloud. Among Grisha, it would be considered heresy. Still, I wanted to say the words. I wanted Nikolai to hear them. I hoped he might understand the edge it would give us. Even if he couldn't grasp the hunger that drove me, I think I may be able to build my own army. Soldiers of Light? That's the idea. Nikolai was watching me. I could tell he was choosing his words carefully. He once told me that Merzost isn't like the small science. He once told me that Merzost isn't like the small science. that it carries a high price. Oh, sorry. That it carries... Once you told me that Merzost isn't like a small science, that it carries a high price. I nodded. How high, Alina? I thought of a girl's body crushed beneath a mirrored dish, her goggles askew, of Marie torn open in Sergei's arms, of Genya huddling in her shawl. I thought of church walls, like pieces of bloody parchment crowded with the names of the dead. It wasn't just righteous fury that guided me, though. It was my need for the firebird, banked but always burning. Just want to check real quick. Yeah, excuse me. It doesn't matter, I said firmly. I'll pay it. Nikolai considered this, then said, very well. That's it? No sage words? No dire warnings? Saint Alina, I hope you weren't looking at me to be the voice of reason. I keep to a strict diet of ill-advised enthusiasm and heartfelt regret. He paused, his grin fading. But I'm truly sorry for the soldiers you lost and that I didn't do more that night. Below us, I could see the beginnings of the white reaches of the permafrost and, far beyond, the shape of mountains in the distance. What could you have done? What could you have done, Nikolai? You would have just gotten yourself killed. You still might. It was harsh, but it was also the truth. Against the darkling shadow soldiers, everyone, no matter how brilliant or resourceful, was close to helpless. You never know, said Nikolai. I've been busy. I might have some surprises in store for the darkling yet. Please tell me you plan to dress up as a Volcra and jump out of a cake. Well, now you've ruined the surprise, he pushed off the railing. I need to pilot us over the border. The border? We're heading to Ferda. Oh good. Enemy territory. And here I was starting to relax. These are my skies, Nikolai said with a wink. Then he strolled across the deck, whistling a familiar off-key tune. I missed him. The way he walked. The way he attacked a problem. The way he brought hope with him wherever he went. For the first time in months, I felt the knot in my chest ease. Once we crossed the border, I thought we might head for the coast or even West Ravka. But soon we were tacking toward the mountain range I'd glimpsed. From my days as a mapmaker, I knew they were the northernmost peaks of the Secure Zoe, the range that stretched across most of Ravka's eastern and southern border. The Verdans called them the Elbjen, the elbows. Though, as we drew closer, it was hard to tell why. They were massive, snow-capped things, all white ice and gray rock. They could have dwarfed the Petrozoa. If those were elbows, I didn't want to know what they were attached to. We climbed higher. The air grew frigid as we drifted into the thick cloud cover that hid the steepest peaks. When we emerged above it, I released an odd gasp. Here, the few mountain tops, tall enough to pierce the clouds, seemed to float like islands in a white sea. The tallest looked like it was clutched by huge fingers of frost, and as we arced around it, I thought I saw shapes in the ice. A narrow stone staircase zigzagged up the cliff face. What lunatic would make that climb? For what possible purpose? We rounded the mountain, drawing closer and closer to the rock. Just as I was about to call out in panic, we rolled hard to the right. Suddenly, we were between two frozen wolves. The pelican swerved and we entered an echoing stone hangar. Nikolai really had been busy. We crowded at the railing, gaping at the hectic bustle around us. 3 other crafts were docked in the hangar. A second cargo barge like the Pelican, the sleek Kingfisher, and a similar vessel that bore the name Bittern. It's a kind of heron, said Maul, pulling on a pair of borrowed boots. They're smaller, sneaky, like the Kingfisher. The Bittern had double hulls, though they were flatter and wider at the base, and equipped with what looked like sled runners. Nikolai's crew threw lines over the Pelican's rail, and workers ran forward to catch them, stretching them cut and tying them to steel hooks secured in the hangar's walls and floor. We touched down with a thud and a deafening screech as holes scraped against stone. David frowned disapprovingly. Too much weight. Don't look at me, said Toya. As soon as we came to a halt, Toya and Timar leapt from the railings, already calling out greetings to crewmen and workers that you must have recognized from their time aboard the Volkvanoi, there we go. The rest of us waited for the gangway to be lowered, then shuffled off the barge. Impressive, Maul said. I shook my head and wondered, how does he do it? Want to know my secret? Nikolai asked from behind us. We both jumped. He leaned in, looked from left to right, and whispered loudly, I have a lot of money. I rolled my eyes. No, really, he protested. A lot of money. Nikolai gave orders to the waiting dock workers for repairs, then led our ragged, wide-eyed band to a doorway in the rock. Everybody in, he said. Confused, we crowded into the little rectangular room. The walls looked like they were made of iron. Nikolai pulled a gate close across the entry. You're on my foot, Zoya complained grumpily. But we were all wedged in so tightly, it was hard to tell who she was angry at. What is this? I asked. Nikolai dropped a lever, and we let loose a collective scream as the room chopped upward, taking my stomach with it. We jolted to a halt. My gut slammed back to my shoes, and the gate slid open. Nikolai stepped out, doubled over with laughter. I never tire of that. We piled out of the box as fast as we could, all except for David, who lingered to fiddle with the lever mechanism. Careful there, Nikolai called. The trip down is bumpier than the trip up. Gaya took David's arm and yanked him clear. Saints, I swore. I forgot how often I want to stab you. So I haven't lost my touch. He glanced at Genya and said quietly, What happened to that girl? Long story, I hedged. Please tell me there are stairs. I'd rather set a permanent house, permanent house here than ever get back in that thing. Of course there are stairs, but they're less entertaining. And once you've dragged yourself up and down 4 flights of them enough, you'll find you're far more open-minded. I was about to argue, but as I took a good look around, the words died on my tongue. If the hangar had been impressive, then this was simply miraculous. It was the biggest room I'd ever been in. Twice. Maybe 3 times as wide and as tall as the domed hall in the little palace. It wasn't even a room, I realized. We were standing at the top of a hollowed-out mountain. Now,
I guess it's true.
I understood what I had seen as we approached aboard Pelican. The frost fingers were actually enormous bronze columns cast in the shapes of people and creatures. They towered above us, bracketing huge panels of glass that looked out on the ocean of cloud below.
No journey is taken alone.
The glass was so clear that it gave the space an eerie sense of openness,
The world's most
as if a wind
superior
might
sports
blow
drink, designed
through
to
and
rehydrate,
send me
replenish,
tumbling
and
into the
refuel.
nothingness beyond. My heart started to hammer.
Because it is the best.
Nicholas, Nikolai said, it can be overwhelming at first.
Brazil Ultra Packs are conveniently pre-measured to
The room was
save you
teeming
time.
with people.
Wash with
Some
Brazil.
bunched in groups were drafting
Okay,
tables
500 deluxe garden gnomes.
and
Wow.
bits of machinery had been set up.
There's not enough money.
Others were marking crates of supplies in a kind of makeshift warehouse. Another area had been set aside for training. Soldiers sparred with dual swords while others summoned squalor winds or cast infernal flame. Through the glass, I saw terraces protruding in 4 directions. Giant spikes like compass points, north, south, east, west. 2 had been set aside for target practice. It was hard not to compare to the damp, cloistered caverns of the White Cathedral. Everything here was bursting with life and hope. It all bore Nikolai's stamp. What is this place? I asked as we slowly made our way through. It was originally a pilgrimage site, back when Moravka's borders extended further north, Nikolai replied. The monastery of Sankt Demian of the Rhine. At least that explained the winding staircase he glimpsed. Only faith and fear could get anyone to make that climb. I remembered Demian's page from the Histoire Sanctia. He performed some kind of miracle near the northern border. I was pretty sure he'd been stoned to death. A few hundred years ago, it was turned into an observatory, Nikolai continued. He pointed to a bulking brass telescope tucked into one of the glass niches. It's been abandoned for over a century. I heard about it during the Holmhand campaign, but it took some finding. Now we just call it the spinning wheel. Then it struck me. The bronze columns were constellations. The hunter with his drawn bow, the scholar bent in study, the 3 foolish sons huddled together trying to share a single coat. Sorry. The bursar, the bear, the beggar, the shorn maiden wielding her bone needle, 12 in all, the spokes of the spinning wheel. I had to crane my neck all the way back to get a view of the glass dome high above us. The sun was setting through it, and I could see the sky turning a lush, deep blue. If I squinted, I could just make out a 12-pointed star at the dome's center. So much glass, I whispered, my head reeling. But no frost, Maul noted. Heated pipes, David said. They're in the floor, probably embedded in the columns too. It was hotter in this room. Still cold enough that I wouldn't want to part with my coat or my hat. But my feet were warm through my boots. There are boilers beneath us, Nikolai said. The whole place runs on melted snow and steam heat. The problem is fuel. But I've been stockpiling coal. For how long? 2 years. We started repairs when I had the lower caverns turned into hangars. It's not an ideal vacation spot, but sometimes you just want to get away. I was impressed, but also unnerved. Being around Nikolai was always like this. Watching him shift and change, revealing secrets as he went. He reminded me of the wooden nesting dolls I'd played with as a child. Except instead of getting smaller, he just kept getting grander and more mysterious. Tomorrow, he'd probably tell me he'd built a pleasure palace on the moon. Tough to get to, but quite a view. Have a look around, Nikolai said to us. Get a feel for the place. Nevsky's unloading cargo in the hangar, and I need to take care of the repairs to the hold. I remembered Nevsky. He'd been a soldier in Nikolai's old regiment, the 22nd, and not particularly fond of Grisha. I'd like to see Bagra, I said. You're sure about that? Not remotely. I'll take you to her. Good practice should I ever need to walk someone into the gallows. And after you've had your fill of punishment, you and Ortsev can join me for dinner. Thank you, Maul said, but I should look into outfitting our expedition to retrieve the Firebird. There had been times, not so long ago, that Maul would have bristled at the thought of leaving me alone with Prince Perfect, and Nikolai had the grace not to register surprise. Of course, I'll send Nevsky to you when he's done. He can help arrange your accommodations as well. He clapped a hand on Maul's shoulder. It's good to see you, Ortsev. The smile Maul returned was genuine. You too. Thanks for the rescue. Everyone needs a hobby. I thought yours was training. 2 hobbies. They clasped hands briefly. Then Maul bowed and moved off with the group. Should I be offended that he doesn't want to dine with us? Nikolai asked. I set an excellent table, and I rarely drool. I didn't want to discuss it. Bagra, I prodded. He was impressive in that fiery field, Nikolai continued, taking my elbow to steer me back the way we'd come. Better with a sword and gun than I've ever seen him. I remembered what the apparat had said. Men fight for Ravka because the king commands it. Maul had always been a gifted tracker, but he'd been a soldier because we were all soldiers. Because we had no choice. Well, what was he fighting for now? I thought of him diving from the mesh platform, his knife moving across the militiaman's throat. I am become a blade. I shrugged, eager to change the subject. There's not much to do underground besides train. I think of a few more interesting ways to spend one's time. Is that supposed to be innuendo? What a filthy mind you have. I was referring to puzzles and the perusal of a defined text. I'm not getting back in that iron box, I said as we approached the door in the rock. So you better be taking me to the stairs. Why does everyone always say that? I heaved a sigh of relief as we descended a broad, delightfully stationary set of stone steps. Nikolai led me through a curving passage, and I shrugged off my coat, beginning to sweat. The floor directly below the observatory was considerably warmer, and as we passed a wide doorway, I spotted a maze of steaming boilers that glowed and hissed in the dark. Even the ever-polished Nikolai had a fine mist of perspiration on his elegant features. We were mostly headed to Bagra's lair. The woman never seemed to be able to keep warm. I wondered if it was because she so rarely used her power. I'd certainly never been able to shake the chill of the White Cathedral. Nikolai stopped at an iron door. Last chance to run. Go on, I said. Save yourself. He sighed. You remember me as a hero. He knocked lightly on the door, and we entered. I had this disconcerting sense that we'd stepped right back into Bagra's hut at the little palace. There she sat, huddled by a tile oven, dressed in the same faded kefta, her hand resting on the cane she'd taken such pleasure in marking me with. The same servant boy was reading to her, and I felt a burst of shame when I realized I hadn't even thought to ask if he'd made it out of Osvalta. The boy left off as Nikolai cleared his throat. Bagura, Nikolai said. How are you this evening? Still old and blind, she snarled. And charming, Nikolai drawled. Never forget charming. Well, Hag, what do you want, pest? I've brought someone to visit, Nikolai said, giving me a push. Why was I so nervous? Hello, Bagra, I managed. She paused motionless. The little saint, she murmured. Return to save us all. Well, she did almost die trying to rid us of your cursed spawn, Nikolai said lightly. I blinked. So Nikolai knew Bagra was the Dark One's mother. Couldn't even manage martyrdom, right? Could you? Bagra waved me in. Come in and shut the door, girl. You're letting the heat out. I graved at this familiar refrain. And you, she spat in Nikolai's direction. Go somewhere you're wanted. That's hardly limiting, he said. Alina, I'll be back to fetch you for dinner. But should you grow restless, do feel free to run screaming from the room and take a dagger to her. Then he winked and disappeared. Oh, sorry.
Dry skin.
To her. Whatever seems most fitting at the time. Are you still here? Snapped Bagra. I go, but hope to remain in your heart, he said, solemnly. Then he winked and disappeared. Wretched boy. You like him, I said in disbelief. Bagra scowled. Greedy, arrogant, takes too many risks. You almost sound concerned. You like him too, little saint, she said, with a leer in her voice.
Get an Airbnb.
I do, I admitted. He's been kind when he might have been cruel. It's refreshing. He laughs too much. There are worse traits, like arguing with your elders, she growled. Then she thumped her stick on the floor. Boy, go fetch me something sweet. The servant hopped to his feet and set down his book. I caught him as he raced past me for the door. Just a moment, I said. What's your name? Misha, he replied. He was in desperate need of a haircut, but otherwise looked well enough. How old are you? 8. 7, snapped Bagra. Almost 8, he conceded. He was small for his age. Do you remember me? With a tentative hand, he reached out and touched the antlers at my neck, then nodded solemnly. Sancta Alina, he breathed. His mother had taught him that I was a saint. And apparently Bagra's contempt had convinced him otherwise. Do you know where my mother is? He asked. I don't. I'm sorry. He didn't even look surprised. Maybe that was the answer he'd come to expect. How are you finding it here? His eyes slid to Bagra, then back to me. It's all right, I said. Be honest. There's no one to play with. I felt a little pain, remembering the lonely days at Karamzin before Maul had arrived. The older orphans who had little interest in another scrawny refugee. That may change soon. Until then, would you like to learn a fight? Servants aren't allowed to fight, he said, but I could see he liked the idea. I'm the Sun Summoner, and you have my permission. I ignored Bagra's snort. If you go find Malin Ortsev, he'll see about getting you a practice sword. Before I could blink, the boy was tearing out of the room, practically tripping over his own feet in his excitement. When he was gone, I said, his mother? A servant of the little palace. Bagra gathered her shawl closer around her. It's impossible she survived. It's possible she survived. There's no way of knowing. How is he taking it? How do you think? Nikolai had to drag him screaming onto the accursed craft, though that may just have been good sense. At least he cries less now. As I moved the book to sit beside her, I glanced at the title, Religious Parables. Poor kid. Then I turned my attention to Bagra. She'd put on a bit of weight. Sat straighter in her chair, getting out of the little palace done her good, even if she just found another hot cave to hide in. You look well. I wouldn't know, she said sourly. Did you mean what you said to Misha? Are you thinking of bringing the students here? The children from the Grisha school at Alta have been evacuated to Karamzin, along with their teachers and Botkin, my old combat instructor. Their safety had been nagging at me for months, and now I was in a position to do something about it. If Nikolai agrees to house them at the spinning wheel, would you consider teaching them? She said with a scowl. Someone has to. Who knows what garbage they've been learning with that bunch. I smiled. Progress indeed. But my smile vanished when Bagger rapped me on the knee with her stick. Ow! I yelled. The woman's aim was uncanny. Give me your wrists. I don't have the Firebird. She lifted her stick again, but I flinched out of the way. All right, all right. I took her hand and laid it on the bare wrist. As she groped nearly up to my elbow, I asked, how does Nikolai know you're the Darkwing's mother? He asked. He's more observant than the rest of you fools. She must have been satisfied that I wasn't somehow hiding the third amplifier, because she dropped my wrist with a grunt. And you just told him? Bagger sighed. These are my son's secrets, she said merely. It's not my job to keep them any longer. Then she leaned back. So you failed to kill him once more? Yes. I cannot say I'm sorry. In the end, I'm even weaker than you, little saint. I hesitated, then blurted. I used Murzost. Her shadow eyes flew open. You what? I didn't do it myself. I used the connection between us, the one created by the caller, to control the darkness power. I created Nishvoya. Bagger's hands scrambled for mine. She seized my wrists in a painful grip. You must not do this, girl. You must not do this, girl. You must not trifle with this kind of power. This is what created the fold. Only misery can come of it. I may not have a choice, Bagra. We know the location of the Firebird, or at least we think we do. Once we find it, you'll sacrifice another ancient life for the sake of your own power. Maybe, I protested weakly, I show the stag mercy. Maybe the Firebird doesn't have to die. Listen to you. This is not some children's story. The stag had to die for you to claim its power. The Firebird is no different. And this time the blood will be on their hands. Then she laughed her low, mirthless chuckle. The thought doesn't bother you as much as it should, does it, girl? No, I admitted. Have you no care for what there is to lose, the damage you may cause? I do, I said miserably. I do. But I'm out of options. And even if I weren't, she dropped her hands. You would seek it just the same. I won't deny it. I want the Firebird. I want the amplifiers. Combined power. But doesn't change the fact that no human army can stand against the Darkwing Shadow soldiers. Abomination is against abomination. If that was what it took, too much had been lost for me to turn away from any weapon that might make me strong enough to win this fight, with or without Bagger's help. I would have to find a way to wield Murzost. I hesitated. Bagra, I've read Morozova's journals. Have you? Have you now? Did you find them stimulating reading? No, I found them infuriating. To my surprise, she laughed. My son pored over those pages as if they were holy writ. He must have read through them 1,000 times, questioning every word. He began to think there were codes hidden in the text. He held the pages over flames, searching for invisible ink. In the end, he cursed Morozova's name. As had I, only David's obsession persisted. It had nearly gotten him killed today, when he insisted on dragging that pick with him. I hated to speak, hated to even put the possibility into words. But but I forced myself to. Is there any chance Morozova left the cycle unfinished? Is there a chance he never created the third amplifier? For a while, she was silent, her expression distant, her blind gaze locked on something I couldn't see. Morozova never could have left that undone, she said softly. It wasn't his way. Something in her words lifted the hairs on my arms. A memory came to me. Bagra putting her hands to the collar on my neck at the little palace. I would have liked to see his stag. Bagra, a voice came from the doorway. Moi Souvrenyi. I looked up at Maul, annoyed at being interrupted. What is it? I asked, recognizing the edge that came into my voice whenever the Firebird was concerned. There's a problem with Genya, he said, and the king. That is the end of chapter 6. We're gonna call this a night for right now. Excuse me. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up. But yeah, please like and subscribe to my channel. Also share this. Also share this video with your friends, family, and if they're interested, I've got other books on here. I've got the first 2 books of this on YouTube. I've got Goosebumps. I've got all sorts of videos for you guys to see. So I hope you all enjoyed the book. Please help me to get please help me as we reach up to, I think it's 5. If we can get up to 500 subscribers, that would be fantastic. That would help this channel out a lot. So please, if you are interested in this channel, please help us get to 500 subscribers. So before I forget, it is election season. We will be doing a super read as the election is happening. We will be doing a super read. I haven't decided. I don't know which book we're going to do just yet, but it'll be a super read on. As we are reading the book, we're also going to be checking out live footage of states that have Trump in the race. So it will be one exciting night. So please mark your calendars. Election night. Go out and vote, please. And then if you guys have time, come back and watch me read that night. So hope you all enjoy your rest of your evening, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. See you all in the next video.